Hello and welcome to the video. Okay, so this is me making some drum lampshades. Now, most curtain makers have made a drum lampshade in their time, and they're not exactly rocket science. They're quite easy to make with the kits. But this particular one, I was sort of scrabbling around for fabric. I had literally scraps left. That's why this piece is a really dodgy cut edge on it. It was all I had left, and the drum shade is a big, well, in fact there's two of them. This is just one I'm making, and they're about 12 inches deep, and obviously that bit of pattern fabric I have there is only, I think, about 8 or something. So I needed to lengthen the piece of fabric, so I've used some charcoal coloured, almost black velvet that I had in stock also, an Mankin Velvet, actually, really nice, to lengthen the fabric. And also it gives a really nice effect, a nice shaded effect, just because of the way the pattern works. When I turn it over, you'll see it gives a sort of gradient effect, almost like an ombre. There's seams in odd places because I was short on fabric, basically. I should point out at this stage that I'm making a pendant lampshade, so this will be hanging from the ceiling. So when I refer to the top and bottom rings of the lampshade kit, that's assuming it's going to be a pendant shade. If you were making a lampshade for a floor lamp, for instance, then you'd most likely have the rings the other way round. But there you go, there you can see the way that the pattern works. It worked quite nicely to give a nice sort of gradient effect down the piece. So obviously I put the black band at the bottom of the shade, and I've just pressed it nice and flat there. I've not pressed the seam open, I've actually pressed it upwards towards the thinner fabric. They're quite different thicknesses, those two fabrics, they're different weights. So rather than have a lumpy doubled over velvet seam, I've pressed it all up towards the thinner polyester fabric. So now I'm just sticking on the self-adhesive plastic. I'm lining it up with that edge because I know that band that I've cut in the velvet, I've cut really parallel, whereas the other bit is a bit wonky. So I'm relying on that edge to keep it nice and straight. Doesn't go on perfectly sometimes. You have to pull it back a bit. Do be careful with velvet though, because sometimes you can pull the pile out from the back of the fabric. But I don't stick it down really firmly, just in case I have to pull it back again. And then at one end, they don't actually tell you to do this in the kits. At one end, this end in fact, I turn the fabric over the end so that when the two ends meet, they do still overlap, but when they meet, I don't like to have a raw edge. I like to have it turned over, a finished edge. So you'll see me doing that in a minute. So there we go. I'm just trimming off the fabric on the bottom, the top edge, in fact. And then when I break the plastic strip and pull that off, it catches a bit on the, because the fabric's not cut perfectly to the weave, you'll see it keeps catching like that. So I have to be very careful I don't fray too much off, otherwise there'll be nothing left to turn. In hindsight, actually, I should have pulled it from the other way, but it was only this one section here. The rest was okay. Well, you can't see it off camera. Get rid of those scratty bits. And then this is the edge I'm going to turn over and finish. So I'm giving myself a bit of a seam allowance. I've used the selvage of the velvet so that it's not too lumpy and thick, rather than turn the actual velvet itself. So I put a couple of rows of the double-sided tape to hold it. That's one. Another one next to it. In fact, they're overlapping ever so slightly, otherwise they'd be a bit too wide. And then where the seam is, it doesn't hold down properly, so I just put an extra little bit between the layers of the seam just to hold it together, so that when I fold it over and stick it, it stays down. Otherwise it tends to gape back a bit. There we go. Okay, so now onto the rings, and to put the double-sided tape on the rings. That's the bottom and the top. Just make sure you get it the right way up. The gimbal part is sort of slightly sunken. That goes down into the top of the shade. And now the bit where you need 3 hands. So you've got to work both rings. Make sure you get them the right way up. And like I say, that one goes at the top. And make sure you got it at the top, because I've got a top and bottom now to my fabric. So the one with the cross piece, the gimbal part, goes at the top, and the plain one at the bottom. And then just roll them like wheels, keeping them in line with the edge of the plastic. And then where these two edges overlap, they gape on the bigger drums sometimes, especially where I've got that seam in the middle doesn't help. So I add an extra bit of sticky tape, double-sided tape, to hold the two edges together so there's no gap. And then snip the fabric where the cross pieces are, so they fold down each side of those rather than crumpling up. And then where that seam is again, similar to the end bit, I had a couple of extra little tabs of the double-sided tape just to hold the layers of the seam. Otherwise they don't fold down neatly. They keep pinging back up. So that's the first part rolled over, and then you've got to tuck that edge under the ring. And I start by doing it roughly with my thumbnail. On some fabrics, like the velvet, it's a bit thick to just go in with the little tool, but I'm working it with the tool now. Push it right in under there and get it rolled right round. Can't see it unfortunately, just the position of it, but you see the little tool there. And you can trim these down, those little tools, to get a better shape. I work with it okay with a little pointed edge, but I think I did round it off at some point to do this fabric because I was scared of it cutting through. It was a bit sharp. There we go. Hold on, tidy up the bits. Push that seam together. Hold on. Oh, just a diffuser to drop in the base. There, now it's done. Okay. So, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. Goodbye.
Wow.